Hey guys, just as a little disclaimer before I start this review, you'll notice that this video is very weird and very different to all my others, and that's because I actually made this video specifically for my other channel. Long story short, I am trying to make my other channel a little bit different, so I thought I'd put this video on that channel as well, just to see how it does. So like I say, that's why there are some things that don't quite line up and aren't the same as my other videos, so don't be freaked out by that. But I thought, I still need to review this movie. I still want to do a review for it on this channel, so rather than record it twice, I might as well just upload it. So yeah, like I say, this video is going to be a little bit weird, but it's just because I'm putting it on my other channel as well, so just bear that in mind when it's happening. But other than that, please enjoy the video, and let's dive in. Guys, how are you all doing? It's Deck here from DC Central, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a movie review, which is something that I've not really done on this channel before, at least not in a very long time, and certainly not since I've been doing DC TV stuff, which has been for a good few years now. I thought, with The Flash Season 9 coming to its conclusion and the Arrowverse ending as a whole, I needed to start thinking about what I'm going to do with this channel. And because of that, I've been thinking about a lot of different ideas, and one of the things I want to do is potentially just turn this channel into a little bit more of a general kind of movie and TV channel where I talk about particular IPs and properties that, mean a lot to me, be it DC in general, Marvel, Star Wars, other projects like that I personally am interested in. So I thought, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 now out and in cinemas, and I've seen the film, I thought, hey, why not review it? So, with all that said and all that out of the way, let's jump into my review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, of course, Guardians 3 is now the latest film in the MCU, and it's been going on for a very long time, as we all know. And what's important about this, obviously being the third Guardians film, we always have known going into this that this is going to be the final film for at least this iteration of the Guardians. And James Gunn, of course, writer and director of the entire series, after all the debacle of him being fired, coming back, blah, 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 we all know the story there. He's now back in the director's chair and has written this film, and what a film he has produced. James Gunn, there's no denying, what your opinion on him is, whatever. He is a talented writer and director. There is no doubt about that. And, the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise has been his baby, as much as it belongs to the MCU. Without James Gunn, we wouldn't have Guardians of the Galaxy. And this film is definitely different than the first two. It's a lot darker, it's a lot more somber in tone, but it also doesn't lose its identity as Guardians of the Galaxy. The movie is still funny, it still has its silly humour, it still has its light-hearted moments, but you can tell that this film was supposed to signal the end of this franchise, and at least, this version of it, and, with James Gunn at the helm, this is the end of this kind of era of it. And it just proves what a good writer James Gunn is. He's amazing. The balance between the absolutely hilarious side of the film, where there's so many great jokes and lines and character moments, but also this movie is heartbreaking. I mean, I'm sure, you've seen people on Twitter talk about how sad this movie is and the reactions they were having to it, and I was one of those people. Like, this movie is so sad in so many places. And this is a non-spoiler review, by the way, I should mention. I'm not going to be talking about any spoilers, so I'm not going to say why it's so heartbreaking, but all I can say is that I was in floods of tears in this movie, and all my credit goes to James Gunn for that. Now, let's talk about the cast of this movie, because obviously the Guardians cast has just gotten bigger and bigger with each movie, and the main cast member I really want to talk about in this is Rocket. Obviously, this film going into it has always kind of been pledged as Rocket's movie, like this is mainly going to be about him, and it absolutely is. Rocket is kind of the focal point of the entire film, and honestly, I think this was the best way to do it. We've had teases, throughout the series, and different lines here and there about Rocket's backstory, and what he is, where he came from, who he is, and this film just dives straight into it. We get a huge amount of backstory and lore for Rocket in the MCU, and if you've seen the trailers, you kind of know that that's what we're going to be diving into in this film, is everything to do with Rocket, and that is part of the reason why this movie is so sad, because Rocket is, a creature who has just been tortured throughout his entire life, He's a very broken person deep on the inside, and we've always known that about Rocket. Like, we've always known he came from a tortured background and was a very broken person, but in this we really get to see why and what happened to him. And there's no escaping. Like, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that part of the reason why this movie is so sad is because we do see like animal cruelty, and if you're an animal lover at all, it's just gonna break you. Like, me personally, I have a dog and 2 cats, and the idea of anything like that happening to them is just absolutely horrific. So to see Rocket, as a baby in this, just all the things that happen to him, it's horrendous. It's horrible to watch. But that is, I won't go into it much more than that. But all the credit in the world to Bradley Cooper as well, who I think Bradley Cooper is so underrated in this franchise, because a lot of people forget about Bradley Cooper, like, because he's a voice actor in this. Obviously, he only provides the voice and some facial CGI, facial capture. A lot of people kind of forget about Bradley Cooper and don't talk about him as much. He's phenomenal in this series. He's so good, and he's almost unrecognizable as Bradley Cooper. Like, you don't really know the voice as Bradley Cooper, and the emotion he delivers in this film is insane. He's really good here, and like I say, this is easily like Rocket's best movie. He's a fantastic character in this, and now being like a fully fleshed out character, it just makes me love Rocket even more. I will also make a specific mention to Gamora, because this version of Gamora that we have in this movie is obviously not the same one as we had in the first two. This is the version that came from Endgame. And Endgame kind of teased a little bit of like what the dynamic was going to be with Gamora, but it didn't dive into it fully because obviously they had so many other things going on in that movie, and obviously they just kind of had to like at least kickstart something. But in this film, they really dive into like who this version of Gamora is and kind of like her new relationship with the Guardians and what she's doing. I found it really interesting where they place her in this movie. I'm not going to delve into it more than that, but kind of where she starts in this movie, I found very interesting. I didn't expect that. And I also loved where she ended. Absolutely loved where she ended. Because I was essentially worried they were going to go one way, but they went the other, and I was happy about that. And obviously, Zoe Saldana might be one of the most underrated actresses in Hollywood. Like, she's in the MCU and Avatar, like 2 of the biggest franchises of all time. And in both, she's like under a huge amount of makeup. So nobody really recognizes Zoe Saldana, but she is fantastic in this. She's fantastic in everything. And I really liked what they did with Gamora, because I think James Gunn just wrote her in the best possible way. And the most intelligent way possible, without falling into a lot of the same tropes. Now, of course, this is a superhero movie and superheroes themselves are only as good as their villains. And let's talk about the villain of this one. We have the High Evolutionary, played phenomenally, and I'm going to try and pronounce this name. I've got it written down here. Chukwudi Iwuji. I'm sorry, I know I've butchered that horrendously. But you'll recognize him from the Peacemaker TV series if you've seen that, which is of course also from James Gunn. I actually have not seen Peacemaker yet. I really want to. It looks great. But he plays the High Evolutionary in this, and my battery is dying, so we'll go through that. But he's fantastic in this. His performance is really raw. It's rugged. It's really empowering in all the wrong ways. He's just really powerful on screen, like a really strong presence. And his dynamic with Rocket, like the way they established that, obviously there's kind of no secret that the High Evolutionary and like his whole thing is to do with Rocket. It's horrible, and he is a despicable villain, like truly evil. And this is something that I think comic book movies are starting to move away from a little bit, are the villains that are just like truly evil. Like, we kind of always have to have like more of a sympathetic villain, which obviously usually kind of make them more interesting. But in the case of the High Evolutionary, he was very interesting in his own right, while also being just truly evil. Like, there's nothing good about this guy. He is just awful. And I kind of enjoyed that. And again, the performance by Chukwudi Iwuji is just wonderful. He truly delves into it, truly gives himself to the performance, and it's excellent to see. Also, I think people often forget about James Gunn, how good he is as an action director, because obviously he's very well known for his comedy and, kind of his more edgy comedy, but he's also a fantastic action director. Like, all the Guardians movies have fantastic action. The Suicide Squad had fantastic action, and from what I've seen of Peacemaker, it has fantastic action. Again, I really need to dive into that show because it looks great. I'll watch it before season 2 comes out, but the action in this is amazing. Particularly one set piece which you would have seen in the trailer. It's kind of like a hallway fight where you see like Star-Lord and Rocket and Groot. It's an amazing fight sequence. So good. One of the best in the MCU. There's always the thing spoken about hallway fights and how cool hallway fights are, and they are great. But this is an amazing fight scene. I loved it, and all the action in this film is great. Because one thing that the Guardians movies have always done quite well, also, is a lot of like spaceship fights and stuff, and that's really cool as well. So I love to see all that. Now, my only real negative with this film was Adam Warlock. We all knew Adam Warlock was in this movie, played by Will Poulter, and my issue with Adam Warlock in this movie is he kind of just felt like an afterthought. It felt like James Gunn, had written this story, and he had this story for Guardians 3 already in the can, and then probably someone from Marvel came to him and said, "Oh, do you remember in the post-credit scene for Guardians 2, you teased Adam Warlock?" And he's like, "Oh, shit, yeah." So we had to kind of just include Adam Warlock in this movie. So he is in the film. He's fine. Will Poulter does a fine job. He just feels a bit superfluous. Like, that character really could have been anybody. And he felt just like, again, a bit of an odd kind of oddity in the movie. He's kind of like an extra piece. He didn't really need to be there. It just felt like out of obligation, because they had teased him in Volume 2, we had to have him here. So, like I say, he's a fine character. He's not a bad thing necessarily. He just didn't really feel like he was meant to be a part of this story originally. It felt like he was kind of tacked on due to like a obligation from a few years ago. Overall though, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is tremendous. This is one of my favourite films of the year, and this is, we've had this, this is only the second thing out of Marvel Phase 5, but this knocks Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania out of the water. There is no question about it. Like, the difference in quality between Ant-Man 3 and this is like insane. This felt like classic MCU. Like, this really felt like a classic MCU event film, which we haven't had in a while. Doctor Strange 2 kind of felt a little bit eventy, but not in the same way as this. Because Doctor Strange 2, it was an event because of the multiverse side of it, not because people really cared about Doctor Strange that much. I mean, I really like the original Doctor Strange, but it's not like a huge MCU film. Whereas this felt like it was the conclusion to this trilogy, a conclusion to these characters, and people were showing up for that. And the cinema I was in was absolutely packed. It was, full of energy, which I haven't felt in an MCU movie since like No Way Home. So that was really nice to see. Like, this felt like a truly classic MCU film. This is hands down the best Guardians movie. I really love the original Guardians, but I think it does outdo it. I'd say this is the best MCU movie since Endgame. I love No Way Home. I absolutely adore No Way Home. So I don't know if I like this more than No Way Home, but I'd probably say, just in terms of looking at it, this is the better film. So yeah, best movie since Endgame, and one of the best MCU movies, period. Like, this, I think this is going to be in most people's top 10, maybe even top 5 MCU films, MCU projects, just because of how truly brilliant it is. So I can't recommend Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 enough. I think it's an amazing film. If I were to give it a rating, I'd probably give it like a 9.5 out of 10. Like I say, the only negative is like Adam Warlock, but even then, he's not really an issue. Like, it doesn't take away from the film. So, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it already, or you're definitely planning on seeing it. So please go and watch this film. It's fantastic. If you love Guardians of the Galaxy, you're going to love this one. And if you love the MCU, especially like classic MCU, you're going to love this. It felt so nice to be back in the world of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's sad that we're probably never going to see at least this iteration of the Guardians ever again under the wing of James Gunn. So have you guys seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? If you have, make sure you let me know your own thoughts on it in the comment section down below. And also, if you liked this video and you want to see more content like this on this channel, then please let me know in the comments. Or also, if you have any of your own ideas about what you want me to do on the channel going forward, then also please drop them in the comments down below as well. I'm open to suggestions, because again, I am sort of workshopping this channel and see what I'm going to do with it. But yeah, overall, great film. Go check it out. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads from me. And I hope to see you guys again next time.